What's up, my comic book friends? Cheers. Time for another Port City Polls presents Cape Fear Coffee and Comics. And one day, I will turn this into a proper YouTube channel or maybe a podcast and just never post anything on here. Who knows? But if you want some daily slash weekly content um, about comics, comic culture, find me on Instagram at Port City Polls or on TikTok at port.city.polls. And that's polls as in Pulls. I probably post the most on TikTok. That's probably the best place to find me. But I'm always posting some stuff on Instagram as well, just not as much informative videos. So, speaking of informative videos, if you're into comics or you want to get into comics, and maybe you've just been kind of into superhero culture, you enjoy the DC films, you enjoy the Marvel films, you want to delve more into independent comics, maybe things like Invincible, animated show got you more curious about what independent stories that are being told. Walking Dead, another perfect example. There's more coming to live action and to animated, and there is a plethora of really good stories being told by independent companies, uh, and just a wide variety of creative teams that's geared for all different audiences. I mean, there's plenty of stories that are geared more towards adult audiences, to where it's not all just kind of surface level superhero. There's a lot of depth to these characters, the stories, the art varies so much, and I feel like so many people just don't realize that. So today I wanted to go through a lot of, or really this is just some Image comic titles that I've read in the last couple of weeks. But these are all independent titles. If you want to call Image Comics independent, it is a big publishing house at this point. But once upon a time, they went against the grain. A group of creatives broke off and they said, you know what, we're not liking what DC's doing. We're not liking what Marvel's doing. Let's go get our own bag and get our own stories and visions out the way that we want to, and let's own our own property. So let's get into some titles. There's no order to this. These are not like first issue. I mean, they're first prints, but a lot of these stories are at different points in time. And this whole video is really just meant to be cathartic for me, so I could do something in a little bit longer format than what somebody feels like watching on TikTok. So to start with, Lorenzo De Felici. I could be slaughtering these names, but Red Roots. If you're looking for a story that starts off giving you some pieces of just what feels like realism, reality, just kind of like a regular school teacher, a regular old ex-mercenary out for revenge. It starts off like that. But if you want something that takes events that are happening in the real world and then kind of morphs into this fantastical world, more of like a Lion, Witch, in the Wardrobe for some effed up, monsters war event. That's what Red Roots is. That's a mouthful. But the story follows this school teacher, and as she goes home, it's kind of like a normal day, and then she finds a decapitated head in her closet. Freaks out, calls the police. Everything's, nobody can figure out who this is, where it came from, anything. She is eventually back at her own home and finds more. Not only that, but like she thinks she's going crazy, like her mother evidently did at some point, because the heads are like talking to her. Meanwhile, there's this other story that's running parallel. That's this guy seeking revenge. That's essentially somebody that's a part of like a mercenary group, and somebody that he cared about a lot, maybe it was in love with, was a part of that same mercenary group, and some client, I guess, got rid of her, and then now this guy's just like, he does not care. He is going after these people. He wants to know why. and ultimately he wants revenge, and he gets that. He doesn't make it through, but both of these people end up getting pulled into this other reality where there's this war going on between what's kind of like good monster creature aliens, whatever the heck they are from another dimension, but they're fighting this other group that just seems like mindless, just more kind of insectoid looking creatures. And it's confusing as all get out to an extent, because earlier on you don't know what's going on, but it does a great job of making you feel like the two characters must feel, like where they're just like, what the heck is going on. um it reminds me of that John, whatever the heck it is, Mars movie. Anyway, highly recommend this. Art in it is fantastic, and I believe that Lorenzo may be doing the art and writing. Yeah, Lorenzo does the writing and art. There's a couple of other people that do the as far as lettering, some of the panel designing, but I love it when we find somebody that's just multi-talented. So that's a good story. It's only 3 issues in, so easy to catch up. And if you don't want to, let's just say, collect single issues, you don't want to be a nerd like I am going into a comic book shop every Wednesday when new comic books come out. You can always find titles that people have highly recommended and order the trade. Trade is like the collection of a first volume of single issues. It's a really good way for people that are trying to get into comics to get to know characters, because you get to binge a lot all at once. Of course, there's compendiums that collect trades and so on and so forth, but don't want to get too deep into that. But that's a great title to look at. If you like shows like Dexter's, these shows that have kind of like, say, like a murder mystery where you're trying to solve it as you're watching and being entertained by the events that are going on. Narco, by the creative team of, let me make sure I get the first names right, Doug Wagner. The artist is writer. The artist is Daniel Hilliard. The colorist is Dave Stewart. And the letterer, so who does the wording and the bubbles and whatnot, is Ed Dukeshire. This creative team has done a ton of work together. There's several stories. There's a story called Plastic. There's another story called Fashion School Serial Killer. They've done a lot of work together as a creative team, and anytime that they're putting a story together, it's a masterpiece. The art in it is just fantastic. I love the way the characters are drawn, the panels, the layout, the way that comedy, good dialogue, mystery, thriller just is all kind of woven into one is really fun. And so this story, Narco, you would think, oh, drug. No, it's narcolepsy. So the main character in this has narcolepsy, or at least a similar condition to that. And what's happening is earlier on, like basically he has a watch. It kind of lets him know that his heartbeat's rising and he may pass out. And you get to see a lot of that happen in a fun way in the first issue. And this is the 4th issue at this point. There's only going to be 5, I believe, 5 or 6. And in that first issue, like there's this girl that he's into, his group of friends that he's out with at this diner. And like clearly that he loves going there because he gets to see this girl that's also his neighbor. And anytime that he sees her and talking to her, his heart speeds up and whatnot. He also has this weird hobby of doing like this blog on serial killers, and there's some events that have happened that he's like theorizing about and stuff like that. So he's online and likely drawing the attention of somebody that he's blogging about for a case that no one's solved yet. Well, when he's finally seemingly about to have this interaction or this date with this girl that he likes, something happens, somebody attacks her, he freaks out and he's passing out. And when he comes to, somebody's unalived her. And that starts this whole mystery of who done it. But the just comedic quirks of the main character, He like him sitting in the park where he normally goes to blog, and this possum that he interacts with and feeds Pop Tarts. It's all delicious, pun intended. And I mean, it has a great balance between that thriller mystery. You want to solve this. A little bit of sitting on your edge of your seat with those comedic breaks in it. When you get to like the third issue, you're certain you know at least a couple of people that probably is that gets blown up, and then you're like, man, who is this? But by the time you get to the fourth issue, you know who it is. You don't know why, and more craziness happens. So this is a great book to get into if you're looking to get into independent comics. Fireborn, which I don't really want to talk about this third issue of Fireborn specifically, because Fireborn is a part of this larger universe called Lost Fantasy. If you really like fantasy, like things like Game of Thrones, House of the Dragon, any of that stuff on HBO, or if you like Lord of the Rings, that sort of stuff, but you want some more modern day elements, kind of like a hidden world beneath the real world or the world that we're familiar with. Lost Fantasy is a perfect book to get into. There's a couple of volumes out, I believe there's 2 volumes out that you can get in trade, and the third volume that's currently coming out in single issues is not available in trade yet. But during this third volume, there's another kind of story going alongside of it called Fireborn. And I'm telling you, this universe that they've created is fantastic. It has really great world building, character building, just a variety of types of characters and individual personalities and quirks, violence and magic, and just, it's awesome. So, premise of the story is essentially, I don't really get too heavy into this, but just imagine there's a hidden world beneath our world that's kind of a buffer between regular human society and bad monsters that would like to invade and take over our reality. And that hidden world has these different, let's just call them wardens, and those wardens or heads of their different households are kind of there to police and keep those bad people or bad entities from getting to our world. But there's a lot of like politics to it and backstabbing and everything that you would love. If you like Game of Thrones and you like kind of the politics and the drama and the backstab, then Lost Fantasy, Fireborn, perfect comic for you. Also, if you just like things that are more medieval, Dark Ages, that sort of thing, Michael Chavez, Matthew Roberts, Rico Renzi's Corpse Knight would be a great option. Basically, a little girl and her father, who maybe this father had some backstory of being some sort of knight or mercenary or something once upon a time, but either way, he's a farmer now. And this is during the time of like Joan of Arc, and there's war and conflict going on, that they're just kind of just outside of. But there's bands of just bad guys robbing and stealing, taking advantage of the fact that most people that would police an area are caught up in the bigger war that's going on. Well, this family gets caught in the crosshairs of the wrong people. Something happens to the dad, but the dad comes back, hence Corpse Knight. And the whole story is them kind of going on an adventure. It reminds me of a lot of when the Hound and Arya are going through the countryside together, but a little bit more loving and tender than that, and less like the Hound and more like the Mountain after the stuff happened to him where he wasn't talking. But if he was a good guy. That's pretty much what's going on here. They're trying to go find Joan of Arc because they know that she, or at least it's rumored that she had been participated in or caused or been present for miracles, and this girl wants her dad to be fully returned and not this kind of coherent good guy zombie that he is. Really fun. The art is fantastic in this. Let's see if I can give you a good shot of just some crazy art. I don't want to give away too much. We'll just show you. That's some of the panels there. And let's get a more like humanized. Actually, this is kind of a cool panel. Look at that. So, great read as well. Now, if you just want something that's just straight up trippy, bonkers, and maybe you were the person that knew exactly what was going on in Interstellar right from the jump, The Eye Collector, which has only had one issue out, is maybe for you. If you like just more like rich story, follow along, get to know these characters, have characters that you love and root for and not, and almost read a comic where it's in your mind, it's kind of playing like watching a movie or playing like watching a TV show, then this is probably not for you. To give you a shot of like what the art looks like, it's just really creative and trippy. And the whole premise of it is there's like an Apollo mission that went to the moon, but there was a man or entity in the moon, some sort of entity that was likely on Earth once upon a time, because when somebody is encountering this and they're kind of praying to God, the entity is kind of like, oh, you guys still do that? Like, so he has to have, or it has to have some familiarity with what human culture was about. So either observing that from the moon or had been on Earth before. Kind of feels like this is a thing where this entity is going to get back to Earth and cause all kinds of problems. I will say if you just enjoy trippy art and just mind-bending concepts, this could be for you, but this is going to be less of the majority of your cup of tea or cup of coffee. Super Creepshow. This is issue, I believe, number 4, which is really cool because this looks like Days of Future Past, the X-Men comic. And each issue of Super Creepshow has had an homage cover to these other superhero comics. If Creepshow seems familiar to you, it's because Creepshow has a TV show. It's kind of like an anthology where there's a couple of stories, mini stories each episode. It does the same thing in the comics. Creepshow, just like the TV show, it's like this horror-based anthology. Super Creepshow, still a horror-based anthology, but with a superhero twist. To give you an idea of what you'll find in it, imagine Spider-Man, but if it was horrific, because it's more actually spider-like, as far as the power and changes to your body, that could just be a disturbing body horror type of concept, and that's essentially what you get with Super Creepshow. Every issue has been fantastic. Since this is the 4th issue, it means that there's been 8 stories so far, and they're little. If you want something that's low commitment, that you don't have to know about some bigger world or universe, and you do like weird sci-fi, horror, that kind of stuff, great option for you. And I'm not going to give a creative team because each issue has a different set of creatives for each story. Chris Condon's Of the Earth. This is the 2nd issue of this. Really fun story. So like if you like, I don't know how to describe this. So imagine like an oil man kind of show, like where it's that part of the country where people are, having their land taken advantage of, or they're making money off their land because of the potential of oil deposits under it. I mean, there's plenty of shows that have been like that. Has that kind of vibe, but there are some creatures that either live amongst rocks that live underground, and people fracking has caused them to start coming to the surface, and they don't want their world. I mean, at this point, it's early, so you don't know fully what's going on, but clearly they don't want their world messed with. And some of these people that are doing this oil business stuff and discovery are not making it. And this primarily is following this one lady and her family's, I guess, plot of land, because she's now came back home to this, and she's having these interactions with this one guy that's essentially who they send out. The oil company hires and sends out if there's been some sort of oil accident. And he's seemingly a good guy, so you have like this kind of duo going on with them while they're both trying to figure out together what the heck is going on with this mysterious oil creatures. That sounds at all enticing. Highly recommend Of the Earth. I probably did not do that justice. This next one is one of my favorites. The Rosenbergs, who are brothers, did the art and writing on this. This is Matthew, they did the writing. So this is Matthew and Mark Elijah Rosenberg. The art is done by Anoy McDonald. Colors by Francesco Segala. Lettering by Hassan Otsmani. Allow. I'm not sure how you pronounce that. But I will say, look at the coloring and look at the cover. You're probably like, what the heck is Abe Lincoln doing? Well, If Destruction Be Our Lot is this sci-fi, futuristic, dystopian where apparently there's no more humans, but all of the robots and technology that we have been using to make our lives easier and eventually run our lives, seemingly, the world is theirs at this point. And it seems like it's a bad thing to even suggest, if you're one of these conscious robots, to suggest that there could still be humans. And Abe in this is essentially an automaton. He's a robot that just mimics Abraham Lincoln. He was probably in a museum or something like that. And because he talks and behaves as if he's like a human, he's a mockery of that. And all these other service bots, they miss having a purpose. So the human's not being there, yet this guy walking around as if he is a human at times really pisses them off. So they all have some disdain for him, but they kind of tolerate him. He runs into an actual human dressed as a robot. And so it's unclear at this point what this girl, like what the whole, if there's more humans, if it's just this girl, what's going on with that. But a lot of shenanigans take place, and the kind of hierarchy of robots. So I guess you want to call it like the robot police. They're trying to not necessarily decommission him and some other robots. They're looking at him as if he's malfunctioned and needs to be reprogrammed. However, they try to reset him and they can't actually do that. So there's definitely something more going on with our main protagonist, the Abe robot. And there's a lot of world building going on or a lot of potential for world building that could be going on with this. But If Destruction Be Our Lot has the opportunity to really be a masterpiece. Rosenberg's do such a good job with all of the dialogue, the quotes, the writing, just how much depth they give every little character, and just the humor mixed with action is superb. If you're into kind of, let's just say you like shows like Vikings, if you like that whole mythological Norse mythology, but also kind of like these stories where it's, let's just say, neo-Nazis getting what they deserve. I hate to say it that way, but there's these people that worship Odin that are supremacists and not great people, and there is an undercover reporter amongst them. She's following them to some sort of ceremony, event, kind of pilgrimage thing to really get this story on them and just expose these people for everything that they're doing. Then a lot of weird supernatural things take place. And there's been some what's kind of like the worst mushroom trip somebody could go on, to people coming to realizing that they had performed some cannibalistic acts. And it's almost like there's these sacrifices occurring for the Norse gods. And what started off what very grounded, and this reporter thinking, oh, this is going to be something that I really just expose these people, and just her career takes off with that, has now turned into this epic tale of curiosity and survival. So highly recommend Odin. Who is the creative team on this? So this is written by Marguerite Bennett and James Tinian, the fourth, which are, when it comes to the macabre action thriller suspense drama horror kind of reads, those two are peak. I mean, they are top of the game, top of the food chain when it comes to that. If you've ever heard of the book Exquisite Corpses, I would just highly recommend looking up those two creatives, because there is a lot that they've done, and anything that you see that they're on is probably going to be some heat. Art is by Letitia Kanaichi. I'm not sure how you pronounce that. Like I said, I was probably going to mess up some creatives' names. These last two are more for if you're into the superhero genre, but you like something with a little bit of more adult drama. Maybe you like TV shows like The Boys or Invincible. And specifically, this is in the Invincible universe. So this is there is a smaller story in this actually by Robert Kirkman, but Capes is a spinoff from Invincible. Some of these characters have shown up in the Invincible show, because Capes Inc. was kind of like it's kind of like a corporation of superheroes, kind of like Vought is in The Boys, but good guys. And it's people that could clock in, clock out, day shift, night shift, and essentially be able to make ends meet by using their powered talents. But there's a lot more to it. A lot of the just like human side of this, like the little relationships, the little conversations, the drama, just makes this amazing. And there's a lot of mystery as far as there's some backstabbing, some betrayal, there's some mystery on like who's doing what and why, at least leading into issue, as we've gotten through this issue 7 and 8, going in through this second volume. Highly recommend this. I mean, the art's fantastic, the writing's great. The writer is Benito Sereno. Artist is Mark Englert. I'm not how you sure pronounce that. But I can give you a little taste of what's inside. Give you an idea what the art looks like. And another good option, if you really enjoy the TV show Invincible, is the comic book Invincible. But you could actually start that. You could not have read Invincible and then just read Capes, or read Battle Beasts. What Ryan Ottley, the artist from Robert Kirkman's Invincible, has been amazing. I mean, what he's done with Battle Beasts is so good, and it just adds so much more depth to that character. So I highly recommend checking those out. And last but not least, Final Boss by Tyler Kirkham, who is a prolific artist, and he's the creator writer for Final Boss, and has done the art alongside of David Miller. This is actually an homage cover on issue 7 that's an homage to Absolute Batman. So the premise of Final Boss is it very much plays like, if you like beat 'em up style games back in the day, I mean Double Dragon, Mortal Kombat, Street Fighter, if you like Dragon Ball Z, it has that kind of vibe, but really good art, this kind of world building, this kind of jumping back and forth between our main character, Tommy Brazen, present day, and this fight tournament island that he's on, to then jumping back to like his grandfather and how his grandfather first found this amulet and this power. Really cool story. There's been like a one-shot spinoff, and just the art is and each time they have these battles where it's like one, let's say it's Tommy facing off against a particular character, and you see their stats before the fight, how they match up, and he wins. Like you can see like what stats change for him. So there's just it's a really cool format for a comic, and there's a potential for this to go on for quite some time, to have multiple spinoffs, to really just build an amazing universe. I could see this translating into like an animated show so well, and I really hope that happens for Tyler, because really good guy, really very approachable guy from what everyone says. I have some signed comics, some signed art. I mean, just really gives a lot to the comic book community. So that's all I have to say. There's a lot to say for this episode of Cape Fear Coffee and Comics, but had to get out a lot because I probably won't post for a while. So see you guys next time. Cheers.